But of course, as we move towards the inevitability that is Christmas,
Yes.
yeah, it's been an odd year, hasn't it?
That is that's an understatement. That is definitely an understatement. I have had the worst luck with automobiles. Car I was borrowing broke down and died tonight, and discovered a fresh hell, which is car sickness in the back of a taxi for an hour-long journey where you can't take your face mask off to get fresh air into your lungs. Whew. That's tough. I do not wish that on many people.
I remember once catching a cab in Germany. Once the rental car I had no spare tire and it got a flat. It was €100 cab fare through the dark, and what a story that was. But at least I didn't have to wear a mask, I guess.
There is something kind of scary about the idea of $100 Euro fare in Germany, though. I mean, maybe that's just the effects of like hostel and things like that coming through. So like, oh shit, where are they going to take you?
The difficult part was we had to go from small town A to small town B, which was 30 Ks or so. But how do you call a cab in a company in which you don't speak the language? And they didn't have Uber or anything like that. You could use an app. There was no app. So that was an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't wearing a mask. So,
that is actually kind of weird thinking about that and going, oh, yeah, there was a time before Uber.
Well, they have Uber in Germany, sort of is the operative word there. But they just don't have Uber in random small towns like Zeltigen-Rachtberg or whatever the fuck it's called. So you were kind of fucked.
It's the equivalent of you being stranded in Long Melford.
Except I could speak the language at least.
Ah, that's what you think.
I mean, we speak a version of the Queens.
Only locals can speak the local language.
I guess in more positive news for regular listeners, we have absolutely no idea and probably wouldn't care. But I got accepted into a uni course for next year, which I had actually applied for a few weeks ago, which was interesting because I haven't applied for a uni course in about 25 years. And I have absolutely no frame of reference about what's involved or how likely one is to be accepted as a mature age student. I had to do a maths test because you had to do a maths and English test if you hadn't graduated high school recently. And seeing I graduated high school during the Clinton administration, I think you could say that wasn't recently.
Wow. Oh, that's scary thinking about that.
Paul Keating was Prime Minister for those who were in the country at the time. I think John Major was Prime Minister of the UK. So it was a different time. So it was almost 7 years ago. I had to do a maths test to actually do the application. Though I hadn't used any of these math skills for like trigonometry or anything in about 20 years. So I just Googled the answers.
Shh, they might be listening.
I think everybody Googles the answers because I would cut and paste the question from the box and put it in Google and it would pre-populate the actual exact wording of the question. So I think it's an unusual thing. I think it's a ticker box exercise. But anyway, I will be going back to university next March, which will be an interesting challenge.
What are you going to be studying?
I'm going to be studying psychology and criminology.
Okay. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving one step closer to being what Travis would always want, which is a crime podcast.
There are plenty of those. And they're very good. And I'm like, oh, these guys must do a lot of research. Fuck that.
But it'll be, our crime podcast will be sort of like, oh, yes, and we've got repeat reports coming in of a serial shoplifter for penny sweets coming out of Geelong, and we went in to investigate.
Well, yeah, I've had a little bit of a shoplifting going on in the Doncaster area of Melbourne.
Shut up!
Yes, it wouldn't be. I don't think we would do very well on a crime podcast, but I've got no idea exactly what where it's going to go or anything. But it's nice, the idea of doing something constructive with one's time. I was talking to somebody today going, it's actually a rare thing. Once you've finished school for as long as we have, anytime you're not working basically becomes your time. So it's kind of nice in a way because you don't actually have any responsibilities. That, necessarily. Obviously, you have responsibilities, but you don't have to. You don't really have it. I should be studying thought in your head. You can do stuff like this, or you can sit down and watch a movie like I did tonight, which you are going to hear about very soon, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else who's listening, bots included.
Yep, absolutely. Now,
do you want to talk about this week's film?
Let's talk about this week's chain movie, which was the Stephen McQueen-directed Widows. He was also the director of last week's 12 Years a Slave. You picked out this one.
I did pick this one because I'd heard good things about it, and I hadn't seen it. It has an 84 Metascore. It has a 6.9 on IMDb, which is a little bit surprising having seen it now that it is that low. I suspect that might be a political 6.9.
Potentially, yes. For the uninitiated, the 20th Century Fox blurb for The Widows, which was in 2018 for those playing along at home. 4 women with nothing in common except a debt left behind by their dead husband's criminal activities take fate into their own hands and conspire to forge a future on their own terms.
So the first thing that pops into my head when I hear about plot description, and we talked a little about it last week, is the Melissa McCarthy, Elizabeth Moss DC film,
The Kitchen, right?
The Kitchen, which came out I think late last year. Which was, I saw it on a cruise ship, and I didn't pay anything for it, and I still wanted my money back. It was terrible. I'm told the original DC comics are actually quite good, but that's probably kind of par for the course in the DC universe these days. This is how you do it. I would also like to go so far as to say, producers of Ocean's 8, this is how you do it. To Paul Feigs of a universe, this is how you do it. This is a great movie. I really, really liked this. This has an incredible cast to start with. We've done the right thing. We actually mentioned the synopsis of the film. First up for a change, but the cast, let's just quickly cover them off because everybody in this cast is amazing, doing fantastic work. And I feel like the fact that if you're stars Viola Davis, and Viola Davis, you look around on the set of you've got Liam Neeson, John Bernthal, Michelle Rodriguez, Elizabeth Debicki, Robert Duvall, Colin Farrell, and that's just scratching the surface. Daniel Kaluuya, Jackie Weaver's in there. And that's just the bigger name actors at the stage. There'll be other names in there you'll notice that you recognize. And that kind of quality, and everybody's at the absolute top of their game here. And you're going to raise your game as well if you're around that kind of talent.
Absolutely.
Everybody is just batting 100 to use a baseball terminology. It's really everyone's at the top of their game. Huge props to Viola Davis here. She fucking owns the picture. She plays the role of Veronica, whose husband, Liam Neeson, was kind of the leader of the gang, who we talked about in the synopsis. The dead husbands were sort of a gang of robbers. He was very much the leader of the gang. He is killed in the heist at the start of the film, and leaves her nothing but a notebook which details his past heist and his next heist, the plans for his next heist, which basically kicks off the plot of the women having to sort of do their own thing. But Viola Davis, my God,
this movie hangs on her. It's on her shoulders entirely, and she carries it so
long. And you go back and look at her and go, she is, arguably, I think, the most talented actress in the industry at the moment. The hottest in the sense of like doing some of the best work, because
she commands the screen every time she's on it. Not just in this movie, but she was powerful and scary in the much maligned Suicide Squad.
I was going to say, I hated that movie. Hated it. But she was good. And I'm so pleased that James Gunn's bringing her back as Amanda Waller in the next one. So she deserved a significantly better film than that.
Yes. I think there's It's quite interesting. One of the movies that she worked on a couple of years ago was Fences with Denzel Washington, and I kind of feel like there's a lot of similarities on the way they command the screen. She isn't like she never seems to play these over the top, really hyper accentuated characters or anything like that. There's always this kind of cool reserve to her, and she uses silence so very well, and just her physicality. And I feel like that's something that Denzel does, particularly in his later movies, to real great effect. But she is this whole movie is absolutely hung on her, and if you don't believe her, the movie would fall.
I 100% agree. She's kind of well known for playing a hard ass. I think like Amanda Waller's kind of a badass, right? She's the antagonist of that film, and I'm just picking that one because like I think that's probably the most memorable thing I've seen her in recently. And I think she kind of looks, and I think she was on Law and Order a bunch of times as well. And I think she plays a badass, kind of hard ass character on that. And one of the things I really enjoyed in this film is at the start we have scenes of her, very tender scenes of her and Liam Neeson as husband and wife, basically in bed together. Not a sex scene though, just husband and wife enjoying, basically kissing each other and being in love, but not in an erotic way. And we see that intercut between that and scenes from the heist in the midst of going wrong, which ends up killing the Liam Neeson's Harry along with the rest of the gang. And again, that's a side of I by no means am I a Viola Davis expert. I haven't seen everything she's done, but I don't recall her doing scenes like that before. And later in the film, when that facade cracks, and she actually, a lighter side of her comes out, and you're like, wow. And she plays it brilliantly in the film, and it's perfectly shot in time. But again, it's a whole new side of that actress and that character we haven't seen before.
Yeah,
and I can't speak highly enough for her. And the fact she didn't get an Oscar nomination for this, that is an absolute travesty.
I think for me, this movie is. Again, it is really excellently directed by Stephen McQueen. He's shown, particularly, I loved that opening disaster of a heist that we get intercut throughout the first 10-15 minutes of the movie. It was action-packed. It was great. You got this sense of character of the gang, which is very slowly eked out through little vignettes, essentially. It just felt really kind of heart-throbbing and boom and powerful. But then it was intercut with these really quiet moments. It's a really bizarre paced movie for me. I don't know whether I would recommend this to people because it's not an action movie. It's not a drama. I don't know how I would really
I absolutely would recommend it to people, but I would be at the same time expecting a significant number of them to come back and go, that was boring or something.
Yeah.
But then that would not worry me for one sec, because I think people should be exposed to this kind of shit. Because
agreed.
I know people who kept me, and they're going to kick my ass for saying it, but people who enjoyed Ocean's 8, which was a terrible film, an objectively terrible film. And this is exactly, and I sort of said at the start, this is exactly what Ocean's 8 should have been. Yes, it is a bit slow, but really does spend a lot of time actually building characters. Well,
that's what this is. It is a character movie. And
we actually learn a lot. I mean, I actually kind of feel a little bad in a way, because we learned a lot about Viola Davis's Veronica, which is fantastic. The other character who we really get in touch with and learn a lot about, and actually by the end are really kind of really into was Elizabeth Debicki's Alice. And that's the second film we've talked about her in recently, because we talked about her in Tenet. I had no idea she was Australian.
There you go.
And I didn't. She's been. I mean, I look her up and I'm like, oh my god, I've seen her in so many things, but I just hadn't actually twigged that she was somebody worthy of taking notice to. But I think the way Nolan and Steve McQueen here have actually shot her, in the sense that she's really fucking tall.
Yeah,
she's 1 meter 90 centimeters, so she would tower over me and you.
Yeah.
And the thing is that she towers over John David Washington in Tenet. She towers over Jackie Weaver, who essentially plays her mother in this. And she towers over pretty much everybody else in the cast as well, and that's genuinely fascinating.
Mm.
And they're just like it looks a little unusual to start with. It's very noticeable because it's very unusual that happens. We've got a spammer in the chat, by the way, which is exciting.
We do.
We don't get to.
Oh, I want to become famous.
I want to become famous. I want to become famous.
You know it's true. Wow, look at that.
Our bots, we're good to our bots.
Our bots are talking back to us.
I know it happened. It finally happened. But yeah, so as I say, like it's unusual that they shoot it that way. Like very, very rarely would you actually have your star male actors being towered over by their female co-stars. I think his stories about the way they've shot Tom Cruise in certain situations with lifts and in platforms, so he doesn't look shorter than his female co-stars. And it's actually really noticeable and really interesting. And so she kind of stands out. But aside from the way she looks, which she is gorgeous, her Alice's character is really interesting, and she's sort of her journey, and she's got a bit of an arc in there, and we spend a lot of time with her. I feel bad though that we did spend significantly less time with Michelle Rodriguez as Linda, who I was like, this is a very interesting character. She has a wonderful moment with when she was trying to do something to set up a heist, and she ends up in the house of a man whose wife passed away recently. Yeah, and there's a really fascinating, I won't spoil it, but there's a fascinating scene between her and that guy. And I'm like, wow, there's something interesting going on with Linda, but we spend so little time with her.
And this is quite a different role for Michelle Rodriguez that we get. She is so often either the sort of like the love interest that can look after herself, or a second tier action actress in a terrible Resident Evil style movie. And it's like she has had these moments in her career where she's actually been able to really prove that she is very talented, and this is one of those opportunities where she does a lot with very little.
I had the same thought. I'm like, this is what I want from Michelle Rodriguez, and I have a request that, and if I can have the controls for another week, I would like to go to a Michelle Rodriguez film next.
Sure.
Now, well, if you obviously will have a next through, but this film inspired me to go back and say, as you're right, she always plays the same character now, really. And I don't know if it's because it's what she likes or it's just because she's typecast, but she kind of plays the hard ass, the military chick. You know, I'm thinking Fast and the Furious or in Avatar. I mean, it's great for her, right? I'm sure she's on a good thing there and she makes a shit ton of money from those movies. But you're right. The film I'm thinking of, and I'll reveal it at the end, she actually was the one that made me stand up and go, oh, okay. And it's actually a film she acts in, and she doesn't do that very often anymore because she doesn't have to. And I think that's a damn shame because she's got talent.
Yeah, 100%. She is. There was just this wonderful level of tenderness to her that she never gets to really portray in any of the movies that she typically does now, and she does it so well. And I think one of the reasons why it's so affecting is that she does always look, and the way that she talks, she sounds like she's strong and composed and together and understanding. So when she does have these moments where she is allowed to show this weakness or her character kind of breaks down, it feels that more heartbreaking because that strong facade drops. It's
wonderful. What did you make of Colin Farrell?
I liked him. I always seem to like Colin Farrell. I think he's a really talented actor. I think he's going to be fantastic as Penguin in the Batman movie. But I kind of felt like it was a bit par for the course for him. It was kind of I don't know, that kind of character. Feel like I've seen it a lot.
He's sort of a sleazy politician character.
Yeah, he didn't really have much opportunity to do much, but the scenes where he is chewing the scenery with Robert Duvall, fuck, those two together, that father-son banter and bullshit and fighting, it was
Yeah,
Great.
both guys were great on screen together.
Yeah.
The other, I know we're concentrating a lot on the acting here, but it was so good. I just feel like I have to.
Yeah.
And the other one, I guess the other real standout for me, I sort of covered him off before, is Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh
Who is
shit! Yeah, he's
fast
scary.
becoming one of my favorite actors. He
Yeah.
was amazing in the episode of Black Mirror he was in, 1 Million Merits. He was incredible in Get Out. I know you didn't care for it as much as I did, but I think you'd agree he was good in it.
Yep.
He was still really fucking good in the Black Panther movie. I was so glad to see him getting big roles.
Yeah.
And in this, he plays like the sort of dead-eyed psychopath, sort of gangster brilliantly. Like, he is terrifying.
Legitimately terrible. I mean, the sequence where he's kind of interrogating Kevin J. O'Connell's Bobby Welsh, who's paralyzed from the waist down, and he's just stabbing him in the legs and just kind of seeing where the pain starts. It's like, that's psychopathic. That's
messed up.
Yeah. Jeez.
And before that is a scene where he sort of interrogates two, I guess you'd say, of their goons, and who they caught rapping in the back of a church or something, and he makes them start rapping again before taking care of business. I'll just leave it at that and let you discover how he does that. But it's like, oh god, he is really good in this. I don't want to overstate it, but I think he's maybe one of the actors of his generation. I think he's going to be. I don't know why he's not a big star yet. I think he's wonderful. But yeah, he's fantastic in this film.
Yeah.
One of the other things I guess I picked up on this film, and I've kind of sort of hinted at it a few times, is I guess the politics of it, and that's why I hinted again at the start. It's got a 6.9 on IMDb, and maybe because it is I don't want to call it a female empowerment film because I don't think it is, but some might view it that way. The all-female casts, in this day and age, it could be seen as a political statement doing that, which is kind of crazy. But I guess one of the things I say on this show a lot is that, and I've been accused of being a misogynist before because I didn't like, to go back again, I didn't like the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot. I didn't like the Ocean's 8 reboot thing. And I've said many times, I don't think rebooting a film originally starred males, only starring gender swapped. I don't think that's genuinely progressive. I don't think that's genuinely diverse. I think that's window dressing. I think it's tokenism. Well, we can't actually think of real good characters for female actors. Amazing female actors like Melissa McCarthy or Kristen Wiig. So we'll just recast them in amazing female roles. Roles that were amazing the first time for men. And then we can say, we tick that box saying we're doing diversity. That isn't right. You can create incredible, amazing, powerful female characters, compelling female characters, and make a film about them. And anyone who says you can't, just go and watch Widow. This is based on a TV show, a British TV show, written by Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl. But I mean, he's gone and picked them up and moved them to an American setting. He's written 3 of the most incredibly complex and interesting and powerful female characters that I can remember for a very long time. And I wanted to see more of it. Like I would sit down and watch a whole movie about it.
All three of the main female characters, they have a very good arc throughout all of it. We talked about Elizabeth Debicki's character and just going from the really fucking twisted conversation that her mum has about basically becoming a hooker for hire for high class guys and things like that, and sort of like, they get looked after, to being at the where she buys guns from, and she starts realizing that her look and the way that she can speak in a different accent, she can use those and weaponize those to get what she needs from people, and it's slowly morphing that character and just growing. And Viola Davis' character very much goes through a story arc where she does kind of go through this roller coaster of revelations from Liam Neeson's character through to being her own whole self. It's that they're utilizing females to create these interesting, compelling stories rather than going, oh yeah, we're going to gender swap these people, and because they're women, they're obviously going to be interested in the royal gala. No,
and they're going to be going on that fashion show to steal jewelry. Women like jewelry, right?
Fuck off. Women can, if you want to do it, just go. You know what? They can go and try and steal from a casino as well. Just one up the men. Really fucking stick the finger up to them. Do anything. It doesn't have to be that stereotypical female-centric MacGuffin. Do anything. Make it interesting for the characters. That's all you need to do.
And this actually film does deal with the fact. It isn't just like,
Yeah.
hey, here's a bunch of really cool female characters doing cool gangster shit. They have to deal with the fact that they're women.
Yeah.
It's an amazing scene where we're like, why are you doing this? And it's like, why do you think we can do this? We're not gangsters. Like, because nobody thinks we have the balls to do it.
Yes.
We have to start acting like men, like,
yeah.
It actually is part of their art. Part of the story is the fact they are women and they are treated differently. They have different expectations. And in effect, they weaponize that fact.
Yeah.
That to actually allow them sort of a element of surprise almost. No one's going to suspect them because they are women. So I if anybody ever comes to me again and tries to call me a misogynist because I didn't like Ghostbusters or I don't like gender swapped. I mean, now they're talking about doing a gender swapped version of Die Hard with Charlize Theron. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Charlize. I think she's an amazing actress. I'm so disappointed she's not going to be starring in another
Furiosa.
Furiosa. We're going with somebody else. But no, I don't want to see a gender swap Die Hard. I like the Die Hard that there is. And, she had an amazing action film herself, Atomic Blonde.
Yeah.
So, go out and create actual roles, actual female characters that they can own, that are their own, that aren't just gender swap roles. So, this film does actually deal with politics. It does deal with female angle, the angle that they are women and they are treated differently, and there is misogyny in the world. It does deal very heavily with the racial elements in there as well, and there's a large degree of classism in there as well. Which we could be here all night talking about the politics, but it's there. But it's done in such an intelligent and entertaining and smart way. It's not it's not Star Trek. It's not Discovery going, look, they're women. We're diverse. In your face. We're diverse over here. Look at all the diversity. Yay. It's done in a clever, subtle, and entertaining way where you don't feel like it's being shoved down your throat. It doesn't outshine the plot. It's part of it.
It serves the characters. Yes. It serves the plot. It's as you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, we really enjoyed this movie. I even think that there was Liam Neeson is an interesting character, actor. I mean, because he has got some phenomenal roles that he's had in the past, and he is a very competent actor, but he's very much kind of fallen into, there seemed to have been a bit of a trend for actors 50 to 65 would suddenly do that aged action star going against the odds sort of things. And obviously you think about his movies Taken and stuff like that, and a very intelligent, well planned out mastermind criminal. That's not really too far beyond the realms of stuff that he's done before.
Like Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, but still, he plays with this well, and he underplays the expectation that I think I was expecting from Liam Neeson in that kind of role, and it serves very well, and it again fuels it's the driving force behind so much of what Viola Davis does with her character and what she goes through and how she copes with it.
I wish I could say more about that, but I don't want to spoil anything. If somebody listening hasn't seen this film, I don't want to give spoilers. I would like to give a quiet shout out to John Bernthal, who's in this movie for about 2 minutes. For such a high profile actor, it's kind of a little bit like, a little bit more John, but okay. He gets that quite a bit, actually. He does. He's turned up for a few minutes and he's gone. I'm 100% with you. This is a wonderful, wonderful film, and the fact that it was ignored by the Academy is disappointing. But we are all the richer for for having had it, and having now seen Steve McQueen's last 2 features, I think. I think we're in a position to say he could be arguably one of the hottest filmmakers going around today.
Yeah. I think it's a bright, interesting future for him because obviously I think just going off of this and 12 Years a Slave, both have got social messages behind them, very obviously, and they both wear them very, very openly on their sleeves, hat in hand kind of thing. But he also, fuck, does he do good characters?
He really does, and he understands character. He's interested. I mean, we've had this conversation before, like about David O. Russell, because I'm not interested in character, I'm interested in story, or whatever it was he said about American Hustle a few years ago.
Yeah,
or Nolan for that matter. We talked about it with Tenet a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
he had zero interest in developing the characters. He didn't even have a name. Was protagonist. So, I mean, I guess it's a relief for me to see somebody back. This is my kind of filmmaking, like with Tarantino fanboy hat on. It's one thing Quentin does well. He's interested and he's in love with his characters.
Yeah.
Maybe too much. But Steve McQueen is a very different kind of director, but he also is really interested in the people in his film. And I'm terribly curious now to see the documentary he's making whenever it comes out.
Yeah.
Fascinating change of direction for him.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know if I would recommend this to people because I think it is a challenging movie to watch, but I think it is an incredibly rewarding movie to watch, and it is a very important movie to watch because this type of movie is not common. And it is this sort of stuff where we really get to see those actors push themselves in interesting ways that are not Oscar bait. This is not an Oscar bait movie, but they are delivering Oscar-worthy performances from A to Z of the cast crew.
It's top-notch stuff. You're 100% right, and I would differ in the sense I would recommend it to people, but the difference would be I'm quite happy to recommend a film, and if they hate it, then that's fine. I think they're richer for having seen it. Agreed.
So, where are we going next? We're following Michelle Rodriguez, you said. You teased.
Yes, indeed. The film that it made me think of when I was watching this was her film debut. In 2000, the film Girl Fight.
Oh, yeah.
And she broke onto the scene in a really big way with that film. That film, I don't know if it was Sundance or wherever festivals. It kind of got a bit of publicity.
Yeah,
and it really came out of nowhere because it was her debut, and she's really, really wonderful in it. It is kind of a sports film. It's about boxing, and I think I know when I saw it back in the day, it sort of made me stand up and go, "Wow, I can't wait to see what that fantastic Michelle Rodriguez does." And while I suggest she certainly had a very successful career, she's the key star in one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood. I don't think it's ever. We talked about it. I don't think she stretches herself a whole lot.
Yeah.
Girl Fight. Now I'll put my hand up and say I haven't had a look at how easy this is to find.
It is not anywhere legally to stream.
There we go. So we what do you reckon? Are you comfortable to
I'll certainly do my best to find it, but maybe we'll set up an alternative just in case.
Tell you what, you pick an alternative. If we can find a copy of Girl Fight, we'll go that way. Welcome to Australia, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I would like to pay to watch your film. No pay.
Oh, sorry. You literally do not service this country with a legal way of getting your movie, yet everywhere else in the world does. Okay, right. Well, there's a reason why we're made of colonists.
Just to be clear, I for the throwback, Susie and I watched a film called Fortress this week. Christopher Lambert starred in it. You literally can't get it. You can't buy it.
Oh fuck! I remember that movie.
You can't get it anywhere. The only place I could literally find it, the whole film's on YouTube.
There's no other option.
I didn't put it there, and if it's so important to you, then sell it to someone so I can pay for it for you. But
absolutely.
Anyway, so it happens, and we will attempt to find a way to legally view Girl Fight. And should we not, how would you? You can give you a second here to take us somewhere
You
different.
mentioned it already, and I have not seen this movie. It is one by one of my favorite directors, so it is definitely one that I am going to leap at this opportunity for an excuse to watch it, and that is Gone Girl.
Oh, yeah, that David Fincher film. Yes, okay,
Yeah, and
so,
that gives us a lot of possibilities for
like,
spin-offs.
there's a few different people in that one.
Well. Yeah.
So we have it. So we are going to attempt to find a copy of Girl Fight if we can. If not, we will go. And I'm sure we'll have much more luck finding Gone Girl.
Yeah, it's not on any streaming service, but we can buy it and rent it at least.
That's a start.
Yeah.
If DVD stores are still around, you could probably find one for these films. But anyway,
well, there is a place that I'm not going to give them free promotion. Don't be silly, but they have a lot of yellow and black, and they like to plaster sale everywhere. But we'll definitely have something to talk about. One of those two movies for sure, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. So it's a surprise for next week. We'll post it. If you're really, really keen, you really want to know what's going on, we will try and remember to put it on the Facebook page ahead of the show. So if you like watching the film as well, or something, I don't know.
Yeah. It's a weird watch-along session.
Maybe you have a copy of Girl Fight at home. I don't know.
Yeah. Just share your link.
Bring it. Share a DVD and we can all watch it on Zoom together or something. I think Zoom have blocked that. I tried doing that for the throwback the other day and it wouldn't work. Bastards. Anyway, so that's next week. Should we have a look at that? Well, I'm just going to keep going because he's writing. We talked a little about it last week, but I'd like to talk about The Stand. This is the new short-run miniseries TV show thing from I think it's from HBO, maybe in the States. I'm not sure, but it's the new Stephen King one, The Stand, based on his epic, gigantic book. Was converted into a miniseries back in the 90s,
and then converted to the year 2020.
And it's fairly prescient timing. So after the world is in ruins due to a man-made plague, a battle of biblical proportions ensues between the survivors. Now, this is a 9-part series for the one and only season that we have at the moment. And the first episode landed last week. As I said on the show last week, it's landing in Australia in about a month on Prime. I refuse to wait that long because fuck you. That's why. Sorry, tell you what, it's on CBS, on the CBS streaming service in the States. It was on Star Trek originally. But anyway, so I found it via other means. And the first episode is called The End. A deadly man-made virus, Captain Trips, ravages the world's population. A number of survivors immune to the virus gather in Boulder, Colorado. It stars people you might have heard of, James Marsden. Alexander Skarsgård is in it very briefly. He's going to be in it more as the series goes on. Whoopi Goldberg is in it as Mother Abigail, if you remember the book or if you've seen the TV show. She's historically bad choice so far for me. There's some people you cast. We talked about it last week with Brad Pitt in 12 Years a Slave. It's like, oh, it's Brad Pitt. Oh, it's Brad Pitt. Every time he's on the screen, it's just, oh, it's Brad Pitt. And not to say that Whoopi is a bad actress. I mean, she has an Oscar for crying out loud. She was a very fine actress once upon a time. She doesn't work in acting a whole lot anymore. Now she's just famous for being Whoopi Goldberg. And so it's kind of felt like stunt casting to me. I was like, every time she was like, very few times she's on screen, I'm like, it's really distracting. It's also pissed off a lot of people who don't like her politics. So it's getting this has got a 6.9 on IMDb. This episode, the whole series has a 5.6 at the moment. And that is, I think, because of the politics involved.
Interesting. There's a couple of casting choices in there that are throwing up some interesting social politics. Like, I see that Amber Heard is in it as well. And
I guess the main one that people object to of the fuss between her and Johnny Depp is upset a lot of people, and they don't like the fact she's in this. And I'm not going to comment on that because you weren't really following it. I don't care. J.K. Simmons is in it in a wasted role. In that he's in it. He's only in it for about 10 minutes. I'm like, who has J.K. Simmons, and they waste him in 10 minutes. The voice of Bryan Cranston as the president.
Okay.
I overall was pretty disappointed in the first episode, to be honest. For me, the plague element of the book and the TV show original story is one of the more interesting ones. And I guess rush, blow over it quickly as they humanly can.
Really?
And really rush over it. So the plague and stuff happens. It jumps back and forward in time quite a bit. Basically, there are flashbacks and there are flash forwards. There are flashbacks in flashbacks. And I know the story reasonably well because I read the book 25 years ago or something. I've seen the TV show a couple of times. So I remember it enough that I can sort of follow the story. I don't really fully remember who all the characters are for such a long time since I read the book. So we don't really spend a lot of time with many of them. We spend very minimal time with James Marsden, who is basically requisitioned, for want of a better term, by the military because he's immune to the virus. And, he's the only person who kind of survives. We have Harold. We meet Harold Lauder, played by Owen Teague. He's actually quite good in this. We spend a lot of time with him. He's a very angry, incel-ish character. He's probably the character we spend the most time with throughout the episode. And I like what they're doing with him. But again, I don't really remember the character. And so I can't make an objection about how he's been treated in reference to the book. But I was kind of like, okay, he's going to be kind of an antagonist. We can see he's going to be one of the bad guys. He's kind of a dick. And he comes across as very dickish in an interesting way. But we're constantly kind of flashing forward. Oh, here's how James Marsden came into the picture. But, like, we'd already met James Marsden, right? Like, so we're already hanging out with him. Starts happening. And then, like, after 5-10 minutes of that, when we flash back to find out exactly how it was that he came in contact with the virus initially. And it doesn't actually tell a linear story. Like, it starts here and, basically, I won't be too spoilery because the book exists, the TV show exists. Basically, the virus escapes a government research facility when one of the guards gets scared and runs and tries to save his family. He basically takes the virus out of the lab and into the wider populace. But we don't get that. That's how the episode ends. The episode ends with that happening. So we know there's a virus, people are dying, things are happening. We're meeting James Marsden, who's being researched by government scientists, and stuff's happening. And then, they all start getting sick and dying. I'm really not spoiling much. Like, it's really all out there. You don't know the story. But then we kind of, the episode ends, like, with how did the virus get out? Oh, here, we'll tell us. It's the final scene is the actual story about how it got out. I mean, again, it had been hinted at throughout the episode, but the actual, the sequence where we see that happening is the last thing we see in the episode. So
it's not exactly much of a revelatory or cliffhangery element to finish the first episode on. Is it like, oh, how did it get out? Oh, he ran.
Yeah. This has been directed, and I think one of the key creative forces behind it by Josh Boone. Probably most recently well known for his, he was the writer-director, I think, on New Mutants, which we know what happened to that one. He was also responsible for Fault in Our Stars, which I haven't seen, but I know wasn't. It's got a good rating, but I didn't hear good things about it. But
a lot of people seem to really like it. It's one of those movies that definitely has a crowd.
Anyway, New Mutants, and I don't know if I can blame Josh Boone for that. I haven't seen it. We should get around and think that at some point, but he may not be able to be blamed for that one. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm going to stick with it because I'm curious to see where it goes. But overall, it was a pretty disappointing and pretty alienating way of telling us a story, right? I mean, I think it's a really, really lousy way to tell a story is to be constantly jumping back and forward in time to tell us stories of people, multiple characters at least. It can be done fairly effectively. Maybe if you're following one particular character, like, it's a fairly standard storytelling way. You start at the end and you're like, hey, wow, you must think it's a really weird situation. How did I get here? Now let's just tell the story about how they got to that situation. That's
Once
fine.
in a lifetime.
Um,
It's
so yeah,
it seems like it's trying to be more intelligent than it needs to be. I mean, doing flashbacks and flash forwards where you have a story where Oprah Winfrey is going into your not Oprah Winfrey, sorry, Whoopi Goldberg is coming into your dreams. That's weird enough as it is, and you're throwing different timelines in there as
really
well.
weird. You're right. It's a very difficult. I mean, I don't envy the difficulty of them trying to convert a very, very long book. And King books are famous for being difficult. I do a whole fucking podcast about it. They're difficult to translate into film. So I can sympathize with the director's challenge here. But you're right. It's a complex and weird story. They didn't need to introduce so much flashing forward and flashing back.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, even if they did do that, if they wanted to do that, then okay, you flash forward and flash back, but then they flash forward again. So we have our present, and we're constantly flashing back to meet here are the characters we met in the present. Let's find out how they got to here by flashing back. But then we flash forward from the present to then find out where they end up in 6 months from there. And you're right, and that kind of kills the tension of like, if you're new and you don't know the actual story because you haven't read the book or seen the previous show, you might be looking at going, so Harold is obsessed with his neighbor Franny, and they are the only two survivors in their small Maine town. What a freak occurrence to be featured a town in Maine.
So original for Stephen King.
I should note there are lots of King Easter eggs in the show. I enjoyed that. That was like the shop in town's called like the Dairy Hardware Store or something. But so Harold's obsessed with Franny. They are the only survivors. They sort of get on motorbikes and they drive out of a town. And if you're new to the story, you might be thinking, well, what happens with Harold and Franny? Harold, as I said, is shaping to be an antagonist and kind of a dick. Franny seems fairly nice, fairly innocent. What's going to happen? We get a flash forward. It tells us where they end up in 6 months, so we know exactly what happens between the two of them.
Wow.
And I'm just like, don't understand the creative decision there. That really was weird and killed it for me because I know what happened anyway. But I mean, it was just odd, and I didn't like it. And I found it. I think it'll confuse new viewers. I think who don't know the story, and I think it'll annoy other people who do know the story. It wasn't horrible. I mean, every now and again you get a show and you're like, oh god, I'm never going back to that. That is, beyond awful. It's not beyond awful. It's watchable, but it's disappointing. It's a disappointing start. It was very average. I didn't like the flashing back and forwards. It was unnecessary, and yeah, it was really underwhelming.
It seems to be an issue with CBS because they're the people that started off with Star Trek Discovery, and now this. They are trying. It feels like they're trying to identify themselves as deep thinking, serious shows for the serious viewer.
It kind of reminds me of the Twilight Zone. I think they were responsible for the new Twilight Zone show as well.
And it's sort of like, okay, you are just purposefully making your shows inaccessible with the illusion of them being, oh, you're just not smart enough to understand it. It's like, no. Like making beans on toast, you don't need to make that fancy to get the same fucking effect. You tell the fucking story. And I'm sorry, no one working at CBS or on this group has the writing skill of Stephen King. So why would you go, you know what? Yeah, this huge fucking project, let's jump around all over the place. Because, yeah, we can handle this story better than King could. And he told it in a linear fashion, which makes complete sense, by the way.
I mean, there's the usual argument is, and it's unfilmable the way it is, that, it needs work to be cinematic. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. I don't know, but it didn't work for me. It was disjointed was the word. I think it was a bit of a disjointed mess. It was all over the shop, and it didn't really feel like it had a connecting story to follow through. And it's going to be, there are so many fucking characters in this book. It's going to be hard to follow as it is anyway. So
Yeah.
it didn't need it. You're right. I again, I was actually trying to think of the show that had been most disappointed in recently, and that would have been the Twilight Zone, because I was so looking forward to that. And no, it was actually really lousy. So it's disappointing, but they've got me again. God damn it! But look, I'll hang in there. We'll see how it goes. Give it a few more episodes, and maybe it'll be one of those shows like the Agents of Shield effect. Like, that's good. It's really good.
At least this is a mini series, so it's like, there's a finite amount. It's not like, oh yeah, we here comes season 2, and they do the anime effect where halfway through a fight you have flashbacks, and then you have flashbacks within those flashbacks because it's like, oh, we're getting to the end too soon. We need to fill it up.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I'm thinking of something like was Under the Dome. There was a book that I really enjoyed, and it was just. And I watched the first episode, and I was like, "No, I'm never watching it again. That's awful." And I think there were 2 or 3 seasons of that shit. So. It's certainly not as bad as that, but it wasn't great. So that's disappointing.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I talk about one of mine?
By all means, I've been dominating the floor for far too long.
I decided to get around to watching last year's one of Netflix's specifically for the service movies. This is The King, directed by David Michaud, starring a young actor who is fucking amazing and going to be one hell of a powerhouse as he grows. He's only 24 years old and he's already delivering amazing characters, and that's Timothy Chalamet. Also got a cameo by Ben Mendelsohn. Sean Harris is in there, and it has a Robert Pattinson role in it, and he's actually really fucking good. This is another nod to him actually being a good actor, and him making a big mistake with his career early on with Twilight for that respectability level, I guess. But it certainly did help his stardom for sure. Now, The King is, as written by Netflix, Hal, a wayward prince and heir to the English throne, is crowned King Henry V after his tyrannical father dies. Now, the young king must navigate palace politics, the war his father left behind, and the emotional strings of his past life. That is a fair loose term of what this movie is. It is an interesting look at a character, and it's inspired by a lot of the stories from William Shakespeare. And it's co-written by, where the fuck is he? Who he also co-stars in it. It's Joel Edgerton. And Joel Edgerton is getting a bit of a name for himself as a bit of a writer. But this is an interesting movie. I don't know if I would recommend it, much like The Widow, but again, it's a really good character movie, and incidentally, it does legitimate army versus army battle way better than Game of Thrones. So anyone who says, "Oh, that's amazing," if you like that, you'll like this. And there's a lot of that kind of not necessarily house versus house thing, but the political machinations of anyone becoming a king, particularly in England during that time. Game of Thrones inspired that shit. This has got a lot in common with that. So you probably like this if you like Game of Thrones. But Timothy Chalamet is amazing, and his slow evolution to becoming because when we first meet him, he is abjectly determined to not take the throne. He is the rightful heir. He is the firstborn son of the king, Ben Mendelsohn. He's nearly invisible. It's only really his voice that you kind of go, "Oh shit, yeah, that's Ben Mendelsohn." But he's got this fantastic antagonistic nature against his father. He is very outspoken about the fact that all of the wars that are happening from Scotland and Wales are because of him being a cunt, frankly, and being a madman. And he doesn't want that. And his younger brother is chosen to be the king. But he dies, and unfortunately, it's the same actor who played Tommen in Game of Thrones, so he's not got much luck. And so he ends up becoming this very reluctant king and learning how to maintain his own personal beliefs on how government and the country should be run and how the people are important. This is this is probably a very, very romanticized version of King Henry V, but it's still very entertaining, and the character goes through a lot. Timothy goes from this purposefully rebellious young man to, and even in his physicality, he slowly rises and gets better posture throughout the movie as he kind of gains experience and gains command of his kingdom as well as command of himself, and finding that balance between his own personal politics and the politics of the country as well as those in his court that he has to play chess with on a daily basis. The other actor that I really want to highlight here is Sean Harris. Sean Harris is one of those faces and voices that you will go, oh shit, yeah, that's him. He has appeared as Solomon Lane in a couple of the Mission Impossible movies. He was in 24 Hour Party People.
He was Ian Curtis. He was so good in that.
Yeah.
So in that role.
Yeah, so he is a really good actor, and he is given a really nice, juicy part to play here. He plays William Gascoigne, and how he interacts with the people around him, people above him in social status, below him. It's really you can see him being very intelligent as a character, and Sean Harris makes some really intelligent, smart moves as an actor here as well. There's not a single person that isn't pulling their fair share of the weight in this movie, and when I say weight, there's a lot of literal weight as well, because the costume is fantastic and it is the best looking, legitimately looks like true battle armor for the armed forces during that period. And it's just awkward to move in. They make a point of that, and they use it to strategic benefit on it's completely gone out of my Agincourt. Yes, the fields of Agincourt, where this legendary fight took place between the English and the French, and you wouldn't have seen it because you didn't do Game of Thrones, Travis, but for everyone listening, think Battle of the Bastards combat, but better. Not bigger, definitely not bigger, but just better and more true. And you can see it playing out. It's awkward. You don't have these big swiping action sequence moments of people taking these long swipes with their big swords, and everyone's just sandwiched in, and it just looks like a mosh pit with people in just heavy fucking metal slipping around on the mud, just getting covered. They're just beating each other with the butt of their swords because they don't have room to swing the sword or stab or anything like that. It's just literally a fight in the mud, and it's really well done.
In trivia, they had trouble with that scene because it was so warm, but the mud kept drying up, which was a very unusual problem in England, I imagine.
Yeah. But then true props to, as I said before, Robert Pattinson. He plays the Dauphin, who is related to the King of France, and he plays it with this ridiculously over-the-top, stereotypical, insulting French accent that he plays up purposefully to try and piss off Hal, the king, and he just plays it, and he's psychotic in his eyes and the way that he looks and the way that he moves, and it is a great different role for him because he's not a pretty boy in this. He is not a likable romantic guy at all. He's a fucking asshole, and he plays it brilliantly. It's really, really good to see. I'm very, very impressed.
Directed by David McQueen, as you said, who is Australian. Didn't see him casting a few Aussies in there. And the director of the outstanding Animal Kingdom.
Yes, correct. So he is a director to watch. I haven't seen it, but apparently The Rover is also very good as well. I'm excited to see what happens next. His next project is called The Operators. It's not got any cast, it's not got any plot summary, but I think that this is yet another young director who's really coming in and making interesting choices, not necessarily financially viable, because I mean, Animal Kingdom, whilst it did spawn a TV show over here, wasn't exactly setting the global box office alight, and The King went straight to Netflix.
Maybe it was made for Netflix. I mean,
The King, it was, yeah.
He did War Machine as well, which was also made for Netflix a few years ago, which I didn't like as much. But I think film grosses matter less on the Netflix side of things. What matters to them, of course, is streams. And unfortunately, in the Netflix world, they don't tell you very much about how successful certain their films go. Every now and again, they'll go, "Oh yeah, the Adam Sandler films we make, they're super fucking successful." Like, yeah, everybody goes. And
I watch those movies, so no one else has to.
So the only thing I can sort of assume from that is he made War Machine, which wasn't very good. And it did well enough to get him a bunch more money to make The King. So they must have done really well enough.
I think The King is going to be one of those movies that consistently gets viewers just because of the various actors that are in it. And particularly over this next, we've been through 9-10 months of COVID, going into the next year or so, as people start going, I decided to watch this because Timothée Chalamet is going to play Paul Atreides in Denis Villeneuve's Dune next year. And I want to see more of his work. I saw him in Little Women, which was another movie I really loved. And I wanted to see more of his work. So I thought, okay, this doesn't look like the kind of movie that I like, but let's give this young guy a go. And I really liked it. And it's got Robert Pattinson, who next year he's going to be seen as the Batman, and people are going to go, cool, I want more of that. There's not going to be many big movies coming out into the cinemas over the next year and a half, ladies and gentlemen. There's really not. So you're going to be going into those back catalogs of the actors that you like, or the actors of actors who appear in movies that do come out, because they're new movies. You're going to be interested, and then you're going to start going down individual rabbit holes. This is going to have people going to it because of who's in it. It's going to be a challenge for people to watch through because, again, it's very much a character-based story. It has not got lots of action. There is some action in it, but it's not your typical Hollywood action. This is very much in line with the kind of movie that Widows was trying to be. But I personally recommend this. I think it's a great movie. If you like those swords and battle fights, those period piece movies, character-based movies, this has got a lot for you to enjoy in it. If you're looking for something that's just Gladiator, nah, this ain't it. Sorry, this ain't it.
Takes a little bit more attention and concentration.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely right.
I would just like to give props to my co-host for a moment, because last week he recommended a film. I think last week, the week before, you recommended a film called Palm Springs.
Oh yeah,
and I finally got it. I found time this week to watch that. I won't go over the plot again because George already did that. I think it was last week or maybe the week before. But here's a shock. I really fucking liked that. Andy Samberg film, which is an absolute dross. What is the world coming to, I tell you?
It's got it takes that Groundhog Day idea and does something a little different with it, doesn't it?
It does. It's interesting at the way they sort of drop you straight in, and Andy Samberg's already been in there for God knows how long. And we sort of, it's the interesting angle is that what if somebody joined Bill Murray? What if Andy McDowell got trapped in Groundhog Day as well? What would that do? And, you know, what if Ned Ryerson was occasionally shooting Bill Murray with an arrow? Like, I mean, I won't go over it again because we already did that. I don't want to bore our viewers for plot points. It's basically another time loop film. And you might go, I talked to someone about it today. They're like, I've seen how many of them I've seen? I'm like, 3. And they're like, yes. Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow and something else. You know, but anyway, so this is really good. Andy Samberg, there are minimal dick jokes. I was ready to hit close at the initial the masturbation joke in the first 5 minutes. Fortunately, that didn't set the tone for the rest of the film. So that was quite a nice little film. It was enjoyable. And there are some plot holes here and there. It wasn't as polished or as crafted as I would say Groundhog Day was. I don't think this is going to end up in the Library of Congress. But it's fun. It's a fun, turn your brain off for 90 minutes, and it's 90 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's in, it's funny, it's gone. You know, the cast is great. We talked about Andy Samberg, Christina Milioti, who's a deeply, deeply underrated actress. She's fantastic in the episode of Black Mirror she was in. Which is the only thing I've seen her in apart from Miss USS Callister. She was so good in that. And J.K. Simmons is J.K. fucking Simmons. He's always fucking good. It's like, you never to say, he's amazing. Yeah. And I really quite liked Camila Mendes as Tala. I was like, where have I seen her before? She was in Riverdale.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool. I just really enjoyed switching my and actually having an enjoyable escapist film, which didn't have massive explosions in it, or you know, wasn't part of an existing property. It wasn't a comic book film for a change, which I really do like. But we all like something different occasionally. So it was and I enjoy films that play with the concept of time. So it was good. I liked it a lot. Well worthy of its 83 Metascore and 7.4 on IMDb. It's on Prime, I think. If you haven't seen it, that's 2 thumbs up from both of us, and you know how rare that is. Yeah.
So we are the curmudgeon and the contrarian.
You changed the name.
No, someone wants armchair producers. I'm not giving it up. Just because I'm stubborn.
Well, if they have enough money.
Yeah. Okay. Now, do you want to talk about your experiences with Sylvester Stallone?
I did. So my friend Monica, who may not be talking to me at the moment, I had dinner with my friend Monica last night, which is not important. But I was at her apartment, and we were going to watch a movie. We got distracted, just talking instead. But the film we were going to watch was the 2001 Sylvester Stallone classic, Formula One classic, Driven. And why we were going to watch it is we were flipping through movies on our hard disk, and I said, Driven. The thing I always remember about that film is the review I read that said that the best way to sum this film up is they should have changed the N in the title to an L, which, for those of you who can't spell, would change the title to Drivel. Summed up what the reviewer thought of the film. And my friend Monica was horrified that was my impression of the film. She said, "What? I love that film. It's one of my favorite." I would say it's one of her favorite. She said she loved this film, and I was like, "Wow, I have never seen Driven. I don't think I've ever investigated seeing Driven. I've never heard anybody say anything good about Driven. But then again, I think the review that said it was drivel was possibly the only thing I've ever heard anybody say about Driven. And I always sort of think came out the same year as the Fast and Furious, and they had very different trajectories from there, didn't they? I mean, haven't been too many Driven sequels. to make $1 billion. So I always kind of put them in the same bucket in my head. So, oh no, it's nothing like Fast and Furious, and that is correct. That is true. It is nothing like that. What is it about? A young hotshot driver is in the middle of a championship season, is coming apart at the seams. A former kart champion is called in to give him guidance. The film stars Sylvester Stallone. He is the kart champion who's brought in to give guidance. The young kart champion who is falling apart at the seams, played by Kip Pardue, who plays Jimmy Bly. Kip Pardue, notable, anything I can think of ever seeing him in was he was in Remember the Titans.
He was in Rules of Attraction as well.
I have seen, that's a good film, but I don't remember him in it.
I think I remember the character's name.
We have Til Schweiger playing the, I guess, kind of the antagonist, Bo Brandenburg, which is like the most lame German name ever. And he does play. I mean, Til Schweiger, if you don't know who that is, he was probably breakout role was in Run Lola Run back in the 90s. More recently, he played Hugo Stiglitz in Inglourious Bastards, the Tarantino.
That's it. Yeah.
Gina Gershon is in this as well. She of Showgirls fame. She was kind of the it girl in the late 90s. She was in Face Off as well. But no one who's seen Showgirls can ever forget her role in Showgirls. It's just has to be, if you haven't seen it, you really must. Ever notable, Burt Reynolds is in here, who plays the team owner. Mm-hmm. This is unfortunate. Like I said, I had made the potentially fatal mistake of telling my friend what I thought of this. When I said I think this film actually kind of does remind me a little bit of Showgirls. It very much the last half of the film was kind of really so bad it's good territory. Like this film is terrible. I'm sorry if you like this film and you find that offensive, but it's really badly made. It's crap. The characters, it's really badly written. In it, like I said, Til Schweiger's Brandenburg is kind of the bad guy, kind of the antagonist, but he kind of has trouble staying on a character's path. Like he sort of jumps around all the places. Each scene needs him to do different things. Like so, he is the Michael Schumacher, if you will, the character, which would be accurate given a time. And he's kind of the champion, the veteran champion who's legendary for winning a lot. And Kip Pardue's Jimmy Bly is the up and coming. Think Cole Trickle from Days of Thunder.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise character. He's kind of the Tom Cruise character who's sort of young and brash and coming up and challenging the established champion for his title. And at times, Til Schweiger's Brandenburg is really arrogant and rude and brushes him off. But at other points, he's actually very warm and empathetic towards other characters. Like pick a lane, mate. Like if you want to play him as the cold-hearted, Euro trash, arrogant scumbag, then he has to be a scumbag to everybody. But there are scenes where like he'll be a complete dick to Jimmy Bly. But as I said, Stallone is sort of this aged veteran to sort of try and keep Bly on the straight and narrow and try and coach him to be a better driver. But he knows Brandenburg from his time driving, and they'll have conversations as well, which will be very cordial, and where Brandenburg will sort of let down that facade and actually show sort of vulnerability, which is fine. And you might think, hey, but that's building character, but it doesn't make any sense in the actual context of the actual plot or the scene. The main sort of thrust here between the two of them is that initially Bo Brandenburg is engaged to Sophia Simone, played by Estella Warren, who looks very familiar, but the only other thing I ever saw her in was the Burton Planet of the Apes film. And they break up at the start of a film because Brandenburg's being a dick, and she starts dating Jimmy Bly. And then 2/3 of the film, she just goes back to Brandenburg for no real discernible reason other than he goes, "Oh, hi, I kind of like fucking miss you. Wouldn't mind if you fucking came back to me, eh?" kind of the extent of a conversation. It's like a 5-minute conversation on a dance floor at a loud convention type thing. And all right, no worries, and hey. And yeah. No, and then like,
I love you.
What fucking drop day, Jimmy? Hey, fuck off. And that would have made more sense. It doesn't. The characters don't have any kind of consistency. They don't have an arc. They don't stick to what they do. Whatever each scene needs them to do, and if that means they are the opposite of what they were 5 minutes ago, then so be it. Gina Gershon's character makes no sense why she's here at all. She's the Sylvester Stallone's ex-wife, who's actively hostile towards him, and is married to another driver called Memo, played by Christian De La Fuente, which is a great fucking name.
De La Fuente.
And the thing is, Memo and Stallone's character Joe, Memo and Joe get along famously. They like each other a lot, but Gina Gershon treats him like a complete. Treats Stallone like he pissed in her mother's face or something. Like it's like
this kind of sounds like it might have been the inspiration behind Talladega Nights.
I can see that. That might have made sense. Yeah. I was just thinking the evil Euro driver character kind of actually makes me think a little bit of the
Ricky Brody and calling you out.
Yeah, that would make. I could absolutely see them being inspired by this. Except this is actually quite funny in of itself. Like the amount of crashes in the races is astounding. Like especially in the third act, like there are multiple car crashes, like many multiple car crashes in a single race. And it's not just like crashing into a wall. These cars take off and they fly like through the sky and stuff like that, and do flips and then the special effects look really terrible. It's a 19-year-old film, but they're not good special effects. So the cars look really they look like bad effects from a PlayStation 2 game or something like that. And they just like explode in giant flames. Like you're sort of going, well, hang on a second. Crashes like this in this form of racing are very serious. Like they can people are killed and injured quite regularly in the world of Formula One. At least they were back in the day. And it's just one or two of these that probably cancel the fucking race because people would have been killed. And they're and they just keep going. It's like,
quick, get them up.
Pretty much. And the most hilarious scene in the entire film. I know I'm spoiling it for everybody here, but trust me, I'm doing you a favor. So there's a racing, and Memo is in the race in this particular occasion. So occasionally at different points in time, Memo is Bly's teammate. In other occasions, it's Joe who's Bly's teammate. In this case, Memo is doing the racing with, and he's supposed to be the second driver. If you know anything about it was not Formula One because they couldn't get the rights to use Formula One, but it's something called kart racing, which is similar. Like that, you'll have the good driver and the other guy who's there just to sort of try and support him, if that makes sense, block other cars and, not there necessarily to win. Memo's the guy who's there not necessarily to win, but he decides to try and take over and win the race, despite the fact he's been told not to. And in doing so, has one of these spectacular flippy flying crashes through the air and lands in the lake. Maybe there are racetracks somewhere with lakes. I don't know. And the thing is, they're like, oh, he's had a horrible crash and blah, blah, blah. The commentators are saying it takes, rather than having like the actual rescue people go and sort of, rescue the driver who crashed. First of all, Jimmy Bly stops, reverses, and drives back to where the crash was and drives out across the actual grass in a Formula One car or something like it to where the fucking lake is and gets out and jumps into the lake and tries to pull Memo out of his now wrecked and on fire car. And like a minute later, by this point in time, Sophia is now back with Bo Brandenburg till Schwieger. He goes, oh, no, Memo's had a crash. Bly's going back to get him. So he does the same thing. He stops his car and drives off and drives up to the lake in the middle of a race and gets out of his car. And so the world champion of whatever this is, kart racing, and his heir apparent, 1 and 2 in the world kart racing championships, drive to this lake, get out of their cars, and try and flip the other guy's car over and pull him out of it while it's on fire. During which time, absolutely no rescuers, professional fire people and rescue people are there or turn up. At no point do they turn up. And they manage to pull him out of the car, at which point in time, fuel starts leaking out of it and a tree falls over and it sets it on fire and there's a big explosion.
I didn't realize trees were so explosive.
The dumbest thing I have ever seen. Like one of them, it's up there. It's Showgirls level stupid.
Wow.
Like that completely. Every now and again, it probably seemed like a cool idea, maybe in the script, but like when you film something like that is the most ridiculous concept. I mean, like this is not. If this was Talladega Nights, then maybe that would work because that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
it's a parody. This is not a parody. We're playing it straight back. This is supposed to be a story about race car drivers and the stresses and strains of being a race car driver and how that's hard work and yada yada yada. But it was just the most ludicrous thing that race car drivers would abandon a race to try and rescue someone. That just wouldn't happen in any kind of professional motorsport.
I kind of feel like this is my real naivete, but do those kinds of cars even have a reverse gear?
Potentially not. I mean, I
don't
know.
They're designed to just go forwards.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene also.
Now parallel park for me.
There's a second dumbest scene in the film, which is potentially would in any other film would be easily the dumbest. They're at a reception, and there are lots of cars. They're not actual Formula One cars, but they look like Formula One cars on display at this reception. That's the reception where Sophia goes, "Oh yeah, you're fucking dumped, eh?" to Jimmy, and in his rage at wanting to get back at Brandenburg, he steals one of the Formula One racing cars for one of it and drives off into the night. At which point, Stallone's Joe jumps in one of the others and takes off after him, and they go for a race, almost a chase through downtown Chicago, I think it is. And at which point, like they're driving through tunnels and shit, and Stallone is leaning over, going, "Pull over!" Now, have you ever been to the Formula One Grand Prix here in Melbourne?
No, but you can hear it.
You can hear it from
everywhere.
Like, at least I know they've actually made the cars quieter now, believe it or not. But I used to go occasionally back in the early 2000s. I had free tickets. They're fucking loud.
Yeah,
they are insanely loud. Like, you can feel the actual noise if you're in it. Like, and this guy Joe is a veteran driver of these types of vehicles. He was surely, I mean, you'd be going fucking dead because they're not wearing helmets or any kind of ear protection. So being in that car with no ear protection going that fast would be very bad. But trying to yell at somebody in a car a couple of meters away, in a tunnel, no less.
I haven't seen you since grade school.
And it's like, I was like, I'm sorry, maybe it's just me being nitpicky. Maybe I'm being nitpicky, but I'm like, he would have absolutely no chance of hearing that. Why would he even try?
Give in to the story. It's not our world.
I know enough about them, these cars, or these types of vehicles, to know that is not very realistic. So,
well, you did offer to come and help me buy a car, so you are the mechanic.
I am something of an expert on a car. I've seen these cars operate. Now, that's about as much. Something like
I can operate a cart.
This was supposed to be about Formula One racing. They've actually, I think the Formula One guys wanted too much money to use their trademarks and such. So they actually used what was called kart racing, which was like a knockoff version of Indy cars, if you're familiar with those. It doesn't even exist anymore. But for want of a better term, they're basically Formula One cars, but they're very loud. So they have a Formula One car race through downtown Chicago, and they get fined $25,000 by the race company, the championship, the kart racing championship people.
Never mind the police.
Actually arrested.
They are
not. Despite endangering many lives, and these cars would be worth a lot of. I'm just going way too deep into this, and it just made no sense at all. I mean, aside from the fact it didn't really make sense why Jimmy took off like that, other than, "Oh, I'm really angry. I'm going to go in the car and drive really fast." But at which point in time, Joe and Jimmy weren't really friends. We hadn't established any kind of proper relationship. Joe's trying to build a relationship with Jimmy, but he's not been successful at this point in time. And getting through to him as being, "Hey, I'm here to help you." So why he would take off? He go, Jimmy, no! And get in the car and chase after him. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. There's no motivation for Joe to do that. Why would he do that? So, I
Joe's
mean,
a good guy.
it kind of
Why is
portrays
he always Joe?
films where Stallone is called Joe, but someone's probably done a stat on that. I'm probably looking too deep with this. I'm thinking way too hard, but like their character's motivation was murky and made no sense. There was no real protagonist or antagonist. They were very wishy-washy in the sense like, is the protagonist Jimmy or is it Joe? They don't really know. Is the antagonist Brandenburg or is it sometimes it's Burt Reynolds? Sometimes it's Jimmy's brother. Don't know. It's all over the shop, and I think Stallone actually said at one point in time, someone asked him if there was any films he regretted being involved with, and this was one of them.
He wrote this, though.
Yeah, and he said he wished he hadn't done it.
I wish I hadn't written it. Oh, damn it, I found myself acting in it, too.
The interesting thing is, Stallone's original script was 220 pages long. I'm astounded what that would have looked like. And apparently the original director's cut was 4 hours long. This is a 2-hour film, which is much too long for a film like this. This could have done 90 minutes. It shouldn't have run over 90 minutes. But 4 hours of this, and apparently there are 51 extra minutes of extra content on the DVD. So I would be, part of me is fascinated to know what that is. But I don't think I really have a motivation to sit through this film again with an extra 50 minutes of content. It was amusing. I was very amused. This is not like Death Machine, which we saw a little while ago, which was just, would you please end? It's so awful. This film was a different kind of awful. This was so bad, it was good. It's if I was under Showgirls, get stoned, get drunk, if you're allowed to get stoned in your jurisdiction, and enjoy it. It's ridiculous, but kind of funny at the same time, which didn't mean to be, but it is.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's Driven. That's Driven.
I've seen one Driven film. I've seen one Fast and Furious film, so that's equal.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk too long about the only other thing that I've really been watching, and that is because I am very much jonesing for more Dune. I just listened to the novel on Audible, and it's fantastic. Anyone who has been going, oh, you know what, they should do like a Game of Thrones sort of thing in space. Dune is Game of Thrones in space, and it's a lot better as well. But they have, as we've talked about in the past, JoeBlow.com did a great what the fuck happened to this movie, because it might be considered one of the weirdest box office bombs. Who directed it? I'm blanking now.
David Lynch.
David Lynch, yes. David Lynch directed Dune from like 1984. It had a cameo by Sting. It had Patrick Stewart in it, Carl McLachlan, Virginia Madsen was in it. It was all over the shop. It was bizarre thing, but really interesting. And in the early 2000s, the Sci-Fi Channel did a miniseries of it, which is not great. But it does.
The Sci-Fi Channel has its name on it. Wow.
Battlestar Galactica was good.
I think over the years their names kind of been taken.
Yeah, they have purposefully kind of gone out to destroy their own name, I think.
Yeah.
But the Dune miniseries is not awful. It's not good, but it'll satisfy me hopefully for the time being until Denis Villeneuve's Dune comes out, and I have high hopes for that. But it's, if you genuinely, all I really wanted to say is for any viewers out there who do like the idea of Game of Thrones in space, that is what Dune is. I really recommend reading the book. I really, really recommend you investing time into this. And anyone who says to you, oh, it's like Star Wars in space. No, it's fucking not. It's not. That is a marketing line that some people try and do because they want to cash in on the Star Wars name and go, oh, it's Star Wars for adults. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just not. It's a different type of beast. This is much more political. There is a lot of action in it, and in the book, it's actually really good action, and there's a lot of lore and mythology and history about all the characters, about all the worlds, about the relationships between the houses, going back thousands and thousands of years. It's really good if you like that kind of stuff from Song of Ice and Fire Saga or The Lord of the Rings and any of that kind of fantasy stuff. This is it, sci-fi version, and it's amazing. It was the novel when it released was, I think it was the first Nebula Prize winner or something like that, because it was such a different type of story for that genre, and it was so well presented. It's not a hugely long book to read through. It is something that you can consume, and I think the Audible thing is maybe 25 hours. I don't know.
Size of a book.
Yeah, but it's really good. It's probably actually less than that, but it's really, really well done. So
21
there you go.
hours.
Yeah,
and 2 minutes.
it doesn't feel like it. It's a lot
If you
quicker.
like it, I mean, I've seen the film and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I don't think that's an unusual experience from watching either A David Lynch film, or B, Dune. So it's Duneception right there. I'd be curious to see it, because I know a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine love the books. Some really quite like the Lynch film. And I'm just people whose opinions I respect. Say the source material is really good. I think we talked off air, but no matter how this comes out, it will probably come out at cinemas here, I think. Assuming things stay good on the COVID front, I think we'll see it in theaters in Australia. It's going straight to HBO Max in the US.
Yep.
I doubt that'll happen here, because we don't get HBO Max. So I don't think it'll go straight to Foxtel.
Yeah.
The HBO equivalent here. But I think it's going to bomb. Even if it goes to cinemas in the US, it'll bomb.
Yeah.
No one's going to go and see this. I don't know how it keeps getting money. I mean, so it's going to be a bad film. We both love Blade Runner 2049, and that bomb's huge. No one's going to go see a 3-hour movie about some weird space shit, which no one has read, unless you've read the book, and that's a tiny portion of his audience. But I mean, I wish him all the best. I think Denis Villeneuve is a genius, possibly the most hot female. He hasn't made a bad film.
No, he is not.
So I mean, every single one of them has been different, and they've been good. So if anyone can pull it, and people said Lord of the Rings was unfilmable.
Yeah,
and then Peter Jackson said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah.
Let's go and make $1 squillion. And maybe Denis Villeneuve can do the same with Dune, but I don't know if Dune quite has the cachet of Lord of the Rings.
I think it has the potential to, but I think there's also a lot of kind of baggage around Dune. There's that idea of, it's really weird and twisted, isn't it? Because David Lynch directed it. It's like, yeah, it is weird and twisted, but it's only phraseology and terminology, much like the first time someone heard the word lightsaber or Jedi. It's learning the words of the world. But
obviously, it's just we're packaged in a nice way in Star Wars. I doubt to be packaged quite as easily consumable as Lucas did.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated to see it like you. I don't know if I'm going to go to the extent of watching the miniseries, but I'm fascinated to see what Denny. And there's still talk today, but maybe it'll go to cinemas over here. He's suing them or something to get it done. I don't know, but
I don't know.
We'll see. Hopefully, I think it's probably the first half of next year, maybe.
No, second half, October 2021. It's been pushed a whole year, but I don't know whether that's going to change now because of this whole HBO Max thing. I really don't know, but I would like to bring everyone's attention to breaking news. I patted my dog's butt. Look at this fluff.
Archimedes.
He is full into summer coat mode. That is just one tiny element of fluff. Look at it.
So, didn't you make another dog out of a fluff once?
Well, Shay managed to make a ball, no joke, about this big that was hard from his own fluff. Yes, we're talking about you. Why do you keep hiding under me, huh? But yeah, I think on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I've exhausted my conversation on Dune. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think that's a full lid for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
You are a very tired man after a crazy afternoon of cab rides and feeling sick in the car.
Yep.
We need to get thee to bed.
And never mind that, but it's just retail at Christmas time is also it.
That's just the cherry on the top.
I
went down to the local shopping center today to get a gift card from a shop, and oh yeah, we're sold out
of gift cards.
Yeah,
fuck them.
Anyway, so I bought it off a website, which isn't what I wanted to do, but because I'm a man, I left it to the last minute. That's what heroes do. That's what heroes do. But it was thoroughly unpleasant to be anywhere where people are at the moment, and you have to wear a mask all day. That makes it hard. So we tip our hat to George for soldiering through tonight.
Thank you. I suffer so that you people don't have to. So next week we are going to be talking about either Girl Fight or Gone Girl. If we can get hold of Girl Fight, we will talk about that. But if not, we will be going to Gone Girl. I am going to actually invest a bit of money and watch New Mutants because I'm curious to see how much of a mistake that movie is. And I'm sure that we will have a few more bits and pieces to talk about. We may possibly not actually have a show next week, depending on what happens with me working, as well as it being the turn of the new year. And who knows how 2020 is going to try and end itself.
We will do our best. It is the festive season. Stuff happening. Things are moving. We don't know.
We're very busy people.
We are. I was going to try and keep a straight face. I just couldn't. That was funny. But some of us are busy, and some people like me have a dog that doesn't let me leave the house.
Yeah.
So, but we will be back before too long. I think we can say that much.
That is a good political way of putting it. And so it is good night from me. It is good night from him. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next time.